something smells, Bo, a little rank, and it's Adam Rank's predictions for the Arizona Cardinals because they stink. They're terrible. And I guess reluctantly we have to break them down here on the show.
Yeah, so NFL Network, NFL.com personality Adam Rank took to social media recently, I think at NFL, and did a full game-by-game schedule prediction for the Arizona Cardinals. And here's my biggest criticism of it. We'll get into where he went really wrong, but it was just so uneven. Like the games that I would say the Arizona Cardinals should win, he had them kind of losing. He had them have a random win against one of the teams I think is going to be really rock solid in 2024. I just didn't feel like there was just no rhythm to what Adam Rank was trying to do as far as his 2024 Arizona Cardinals game-by-game record prediction.
Okay.
We want to show his final record prediction. We'll go through it here. So he has him, Johnny, opening up the season on the road up in Rough Buff with a loss to the Bills, which is fine. Then coming home, dropping a game week 2 to the LA Rams, and then randomly beating the Detroit Lions at home, taking down the Washington Commanders, which I agree with, and then dropping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight to the Niners, Packers, Chargers, Dolphins, Bears, and Jets in week 10, and then going on a little bit of a run and winning 4 of 5, sweeping the Seahawks, dropping a game on the road to the Vikings, beating the Pats, taking down the Panthers, and then finishing the season with back-to-back losses against the Rams and the Niners to finish with a 6-11 record.
Yeah, can we see that again, producer Jacob? Again, if you start 2-2, I think a lot of Cardinal fans would take that. Like I think this podcast would take that. You start 2-2 with those 4 teams. Washington, you have to get a dub. Anybody, I think, in the chat would sign up right now with the prospects of who they have in the second half of the season. Where I have a big issue with is look at the teams in that 6-game losing streak.
Yeah,
Miami, which we will be at that game in attendance in South Beach. Tons of turnover this offseason. The Chargers gutted their roster. They're a rebuilding team. I believe you play them at home. Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers, a nice story last year. Do a lot of people feel like they come down to earth at the beginning of this year? You're losing to Caleb Williams at home, and I like Chicago fine. And then an aging Aaron Rodgers. You cannot lose back-to-back games to the joke New York Jets and then subsequently the week before to a rookie Caleb Williams. You can't lose games to Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. You just can't. And I like the fact that he's got them sweeping Seattle. That's a necessity. But it's a quarterback lead. The Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray have an advantage against those teams. You want to tell me that they lose to superior quarterbacks? I can understand that. That makes sense to me. Buffalo with Josh Allen, Stafford, as we've talked about, Tua, Aaron Rodgers with one leg at 100 years old. And then, as we mentioned, a bunch of rookies. That does not compute. For me, it's Jonathan Gannon has an advantage defensively when he's going up against a young quarterback, and Kyler Murray is the superior player. So I like some of it. It's not as bad as the initial record, sticker price shell shock would indicate. But there has to be more W's the front end of the season, because otherwise, as you saw, Cardinals can make a run in the second half. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't, right? And it's like they're randomly going to beat the Detroit Lions, who are one of the more balanced rosters, deeper rosters in the league. Ton of expectations. They're just going to beat them, beat Washington, and then just fall apart. Like, the only thing that would make sense for them to go on a 6-game skid like that is if they had significant injuries, key injuries, especially one at the quarterback position. But if they get consistent quarterback play, like I don't see any way that they can't stop the bleeding and that they're gonna suffer a 6-game skid, especially at that juncture in the schedule. Like, it just to a lot of the points you made. Like, I know people are trying to really jump on and jumpstart a Jets hype train, but I see that as very fraudulent. And then, between what I've deemed the wild card spot of their schedule between the Chargers on that faux Monday night game that you might be able to find on your smartphone or something like that. And then you got the Dolphins
Your
and the
Nintendo
Bears
Switch.
and the Jets. Like, if they drop all 4 of those games, like, look out. Like, we'll be hovering our hand over the panic button if that comes to fruition.
I'm going to tell you right now, like, I like the Chicago Bears this year. I think they're going to be competitive. I think Matt Eberflus is a big-time fraud, and I think that a lot of us forget how bad that Bears team was last year at times, and the fact that, listen,
Full disclosure, Adam Rank is a Bears fan.
They beat the Minnesota Vikings 12-10 in one of the most unwatchable games ever.
Yeah.
Here are the teams they beat last year. They beat the Chicago Bears, beat the Washington Commanders, one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
They beat the Raiders, one of the worst teams in the NFL. They beat the Panthers by 3 points at home at Soldier Field, the worst team in the NFL. They beat Joshua Dobbs, or whatever was left of Minnesota, in week 12 by 2 points, 12-10. Their only viable win of the year. They beat Detroit at home, a divisional game. Anything can go, 28-13. Then they beat the Cardinals, what was left of them at the end of last year, and they beat the Falcons. Falcons that they were rotating Taylor Heineke and the guy Desmond Ridder, who's now backing up Kyler Murray. The Bears were one of the most fraudulent winning teams at the end of last year. So you're telling me right now, and I like Caleb Williams, and he's going to be a really good player. And Keenan Allen, and everybody is excited about Roma Dunze. Bears got a nice collection of talent. Bears are not going on like 12-5.
Right.
Get that shit out of here. They're not coming across country to Arizona in the second month of Caleb Williams and beating the Cardinals. They're just not. And then the Cardinals are not losing to the Jets. The Jets are the most overrated team in the NFL.
I mean, it's that people are beer bonging the Bears Kool-Aid right now. Like, they love the offseason. It's just like, they look at where they were last year at this time. Everybody was buying the Justin Fields hype. They were going to be the team. It was the same thing. It's like, are they the new Denver Broncos? Are they gonna? Is their fan base ever gonna learn their lesson? Like, you can win the offseason as much as you want. Does it translate to regular season wins? Is the guy that you're deciding to move forward with the head coach? Is he the right leader of men? Like, that's going to be an interesting part of their schedule to see. Like, they're gonna know a little bit more about Eberflus by that point, and his seat potentially could be hot. I just don't see it during that little part of their schedule where they're going losing 4 straight, especially the Chargers, Dolphins, Bears, Jets, because if so, something's gone rotten in the desert. And I just don't think that's the case. I just don't think Jonathan Gannon, with a much improved roster, is going to let his team bleed out like that.
There's just, every year there's the holy trinity of teams that are pubbed up by the national media because they have big markets and then fall on their face and we laugh at them. It is the Denver Broncos, the New York Jets, and the Chicago Bears. Yeah. Every year, like clockwork, take those teams unders with our friends at Bet365 and it will make you money. Parlay it right now. I'm sure you can do it with Bet365. Those are 3 of the biggest joke franchises in the league, and the Cardinals are going to take losses to 2 of those teams. You rest assured that folks nationally are going to pick the Cardinals to lose to the Broncos in the preseason game, because everybody is pubbing up Denver now, led by 8th-year senior Bo Nix and his rag arm. These are the easiest things to telegraph to make you money this NFL season.
So what's it actually look like? I mean, if we're doing this, and I know we've done this exercise probably to a fault, but you and I believe, especially with how this Bills organization is in flux, that a win in the opener is possible. I mean, are you ready to bet on it? Cardinals are 7-point dogs.
I am ready.
You got the Rams week 2. You got the Lions at home week 3. Commanders, Cliffy comes home. That's got to be an absolute dub, as Rank does predict here. Niners, Packers, a couple teams that faced off in the divisional round. And then you got the Chargers, who are picking just right behind the Cardinals this past season. Like, did they do enough to improve their roster? Like, sure, they switched out head coaches, and that should help. But is the roster where it needs to be enough for them to be the definitive favorite at home or on the road against the Cardinals on Monday Night Football? Probably not. And then the Dolphins, thank God Dame is not here to defend them. Like, there was a ton of talent that left that organization this past season.
The Dolphins are one of the easiest teams to hedge on a major regression this year. And by major, I mean like that's a 7-10 team this year. I think that division as a whole takes a step back. I think Buffalo could win that division with 10 games. And I think the AFC has a little bit of a retread year. But the talent discrepancy in the NFC just can't be ignored. And the Cardinals, to me, you flipped that Jets game and the Bears game. And suddenly now the Cardinals are 8-9 and much closer to the 9-8 projection that you and I had to begin this year, making the playoffs as a 7 seed at 9-8. Very doable, right? But you can't be losing to rookies, and you can't be losing to the Eberfluses and the fraud Robert Salehs. Like Jonathan Gannon has to solidify himself as at least a good head coach in the NFL. We think he's good, but of course he would tell you got to win games. And then the flip of that 8-9 to 9-8 is you can't get swept by the Rams and the Niners.
Right.
You can't, because we just outlined it. You can beat these teams with the fraudulent QBs and the fraudulent head coaches. If you're still getting swept by Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay, it's going to be very difficult for you to find yourself playing in January.
Can you imagine, though? I mean, if they get if they are able to sweep the Seahawks and then they could just get one win over,
that's all it takes.
Yeah, you go 3-3 in the division and you're in a decent spot. But like if you're beating one of those teams and then you're dropping teams to these other organizations, and what this prediction tells me is people are discounting the head coaching position. As you said, you got Saleh, you got Eberflus, and also discounting, how hard it is to play quarterback at the NFL level. And, a loss, albeit on the road to Minnesota all the way in week 13, like just chalk it up. Like I won't accept that. Like that's a game where the Cardinals should be very competitive and should be able to get out of there with a dub, even though the organization hasn't won there since like the 70s. We're going to know a whole lot about JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold in that quarterback position by that time in the season. And hopefully it bodes well for the Cardinals.